Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
All of my friends tell me that I'm the good girl, yes they do. They all see me as being so perfect, little Miss Goody Two Shoes. If I do something a little risque, they all gasp and I just say, good girl, wanna get crazy sometimes too.
I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And this is where us victory chicks and you guys who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to make our lives better and give us a little more jazz and sparkle. And thanks for coming to Happy Hour today. Say, did you ever watch the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? If you did, remember when Aunt Viv left to have a baby and returned with a completely different look? That's because the first Aunt Viv left and was replaced by our guest today, Daphne Maxwell Reid, who will be forever known as the second Mrs. Banks and the second Aunt Viv. Well, Fresh Prince is what Daphne Maxwell Reid might be most famous for, but it was just a very small piece of Daphne's career. And she's here today to talk about her past and the French Prince, her artwork, and her down-home cookbook, which I just love. So she's fun to chat with. So she'll be here in just a little bit. So it's been a busy week for me. How about you? I talk about politics and the newest bombshell report that came out yesterday, but you know what? I can't get a handle on it. And how it's interpreted depends on what station you listen to. You know, the morning shows barely covered it, and each of the big cable networks each focused on the things that most supported their viewpoints. And I kind of think that's pretty disturbing. And the most disturbing thing was that one guy, and this like all the stations covered this, who told his girlfriend they wouldn't let Trump be president. Now, obviously, his girlfriend, obviously that man was talking out of his hat. But what kind of power did he think he had, or what kind of plan was it? You know, I know corruption in government isn't new. If you've never seen the old movie State of the Union with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, you should try to find it because it was made in 1948. And if you just gave them a change of clothes and settings, it could be about today. Anyway, since I can't figure out more than to talk about movies, I can tell you this. I was so glad to spend this week at home. After weeks of traveling and spending time in hotels, I was so happy to be in my own bed. So, and you know, I probably told you this last week, right after the Friday Happy Hour, I left for Joseph's reunion for the alums of the now defunct Scotland School for Veterans Children, where Joseph went. I've talked about this weekend before. It used to be an all-school event every other year. But I think since people are dying off, they made it an annual event. And grads from as long ago as the class of 41 come back. Well, there's just one guy from the class of 41, and he's 86-year-old Granville Walt, who looks pretty amazing, and, this cracks me up, is an avid bowler and still bowls every week. It amazes me because I can barely pick up a bowling ball. And that's not just because I'm older. I was like that before. I wasn't in a league, but both my parents were. They played at, some of you know, St. Dorothy's in Drexel Hill. So they would take all of us bowling on Sunday mornings so they could practice. And some of you might remember the old sprawl lanes in Springfield or the bowling alley behind the Manoa Shopping Center. Well, we'd go to church, come home for breakfast, and then to head to one of those lanes. And even then, I think I played with a 10-pound ball. My mom had a full-grown adult woman's ball, but not me, even when I was a teenager. Anyway, Granville and his spouse Mary still bowl, and they also still get themselves to the Scotland School reunion. But that wasn't until Saturday. We left on Friday. That was until Saturday. Joseph and I spent Friday night in Gettysburg. And our plan was to get there by 8 so we could take a ghost tour. Because you know how I am. And since Christy Cavallo was here doing her psychic readings on Friday, I thought that would be a good follow-up to that. But though we got there in time, we didn't get our tickets in advance, just in case we got held up in traffic between here and there. And when we got to the place, Carol, who runs the show there, said they had a last-minute flurry of ticket buyers, and just right before we got there, sold the last 2 tickets. Well, I was disappointed because Carol knew we were coming, but, it wasn't meant to be. So we just went out for dinner and a couple of drinks. And that was okay because Joseph and I were both tired from travel and then from the girlfriend gal. However, since we didn't need to be in Chambersburg until late afternoon, we stayed in Gettysburg and we went to a place called the David Wills House, right in the heart of Gettysburg. And we also visited the Schreiber House down the road. The David Wills House, which for you history buffs is free, if you want to get there, it's free from now till August. Is the place where Lincoln polished up the Gettysburg Address. The exhibit included 2 very well-done videos worth watching. And then we went to this place called the Schreiber House, and they give tours of the house. They talk about the civilians before, during, and after the war. And Victory Chicks and you guys, I never much thought about those people. You always go, it's always... The more I know about, here's the thing, the more I know about Gettysburg, the more I realize how much I don't know. Like, for example, I know the Battle of Gettysburg happened on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and is considered the most important battle of the Civil War. Now, if you know your history, you know the Civil War didn't just start because of the moral issues over slavery. It was more about economics and state rights. And that the southern states wanted to bypass federal law so they could keep their slaves and expand slavery. It's way more complicated than that, but without that war, and specifically what happened at Gettysburg, the South might have won the war, and some say probably would have. And slavery might never have been abolished, at least not at the time that it was. So each time I've been to Gettysburg, including the time I went there in a couple of Decembers ago for a writing retreat, I focused on the battle, but this time I started to realize the impact on the citizens of that tiny town. And they were devastated. I never thought about how there were about 50,000 soldiers and their horses and no facilities for them to sleep, let alone relieve themselves, except in the streets. And it was July. Think about that, what that must have been like. The battle itself is commemorated each year on that weekend that's closest to July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. But in November, it's Remembrance Day, and that's when President Lincoln ordered that proper graves be set up for the dead. And that year, on November 19th, the new soldiers, they called it the Soldiers National Cemetery, was dedicated, and Lincoln was not the main speaker because he wasn't a particularly good orator. They chose a man by the name of Edward Everett, who had the honor, and he spoke for 2 hours in November in Gettysburg. Then Lincoln spoke for about 5 minutes, and that speech, the Gettysburg Address, has become historical for its content. If you never read it, I posted a link to it on today's radio wrap-up. And each year they do a whole big thing in Gettysburg for Remembrance Day. From having a parade during the day, the illumination of the graves at dusk, and at night, a Civil War costume ball. So anyway, Gettysburg was good. The reunion was also good. And then Joseph and I got home on Sunday night. We ordered a pizza, and we settled down to watch the Tony Awards. I don't know, did you watch them? The Tonys are one of the ones I really like a lot because, well, mostly because when I watch, I get to see the talent. Like this year was Josh Groban and Sarah Bareilles, who actually performed as part of their host duties. And they were funny. I can do it out the political stuff and the F-bombs and all that kind of stuff. I really want to be entertained. But, that stuff anymore is part of the package, so. And it's probably why the award show ratings have gone down. Anyway, I'm getting a high sign that it's time for us to go for a break. So today we have Daphne Maxwell read. Now, as I said earlier, you might only know her as Aunt Viv from Fresh Prince. But this very classy woman has a victorious history, a fabulous first, and is doing some very cool things in her newest chapter. So she just might inspire you. So we're going to talk to her about all of that stuff. So let's take a break, and you can go get some good happy hour something to drink. And when you come back, Daphne Maxwell Reid will be with us. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and with me is Daphne Maxwell Reid. Welcome to Happy Hour, Daphne.
Well, thank you very much. What a delight.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. We have so much to talk about.
Yes.
You know, Daphne, I think my listeners are probably most familiar with you from your work with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and they'll want to hear about that. And I also want to introduce them to your book about doors, which I have to tell you, Daphne, I love that book.
Excellent.
And your cookbook. But first, I want to talk about some of your history because you have what I would call a victorious woman kind of history.
Yeah, I've done a lot of first things.
You have. Well,
It's only because I was in the right place at the right time.
And then, see, that's probably true, but then you made the most of it.
Oh, yeah. Take advantage of most opportunities. Yeah.
So you were studying at Northwestern University, and you became an activist. Could you tell my listeners what happened? I thought I think the story is interesting, but I think what your mother said to you was the best.
Well, we kind of integrated Northwestern University. The year I entered in 1966, there were only 66 black students there. And they didn't have places for us to congregate. We were attacked.
Wow.
It was a challenge being there. But it was time to ask them to make some concessions. Mm-hmm. And we had been through a couple of rounds. The leadership of the Black Student Union had been through a couple of rounds with the university, and they had not responded to our request. So we said, okay, 'tis time. Mm-hmm. And the leadership decided to do a building takeover and to kind of shut the university down. And we had about 100 students there that year, because it was my sophomore year. And we were told, I guess you would call the army of us were told, be at a certain place early in the morning and just line up and wait for instructions. That's all we knew. And we were compliant because we were eager for some changes at Northwestern. And we marched over to the bursar's office, which is where all the money was kept and where all the business was done, because in those days there was one computer on campus, and it was there. And there was a diversion at a different building. 2 people were sent out as a diversion, and all of the police congregated to that building. They were rushing over to see what was going on over there, as well as the guard of the bursar's office. He came from his post and was looking to see what all the noise was about, because they had heard that we were going to do something, so there were a lot of campus security. But they were at the wrong place. Huh. And while they were being diverted, we were given the signal, and we all, 100 of us, entered the bursar's office and put a chain lock on the door.
Wow.
And we were in there for 38 hours while the people who were kind of guiding us, they were graduate students and upperclassmen who were doing the negotiating. And until they came and said it was time to leave, we were in there. And I felt it was a wonderful opportunity to just make a change, and a change was needed. But everybody had to, of course, call their parents. It didn't cross my mind that I could have been kicked out of school or anything like that. I've always been a free spirit, and my mother was very much involved in community activism. So I called her from the building. I said, Mom, we took over the bursar's office, and we're in here. And she said, oh, okay, let me know if you need bail money. And that was all she said. I mean, some of the students' parents said, if you don't get out of there, I'm coming up there to get you.
That's what my father would have said. He was like, get the hell out of there. Yeah.
Right? My mom just said, okay. Whatever you need, let me know.
Daphne, I was thinking about that, and I thought that was not just supportive; it was really bold. So
it was bold,
yeah,
but it didn't seem bold at the time because there was a lot of activism. It was a very volatile time anyway. Martin Luther King had just been shot. Bobby Kennedy had been shot. It was a time of people standing up and saying, "This has got to stop." And we decided that the racism at Northwestern had to stop, and some concessions really needed to be made. So we went about doing it.
Daphne, in my monologue, I was talking about going to Gettysburg, and when this happened in your life, it was about 100 years after the end of the Civil War. Doesn't that sort of amaze you?
It's sad, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's very sad that we still have to fight the same battle that I fought. And I'm up there in years. It was 50 years ago that we did that takeover. And I'm very annoyed that we have to keep teaching the same lesson to people, that people are people. Get over it.
Yeah, and I had an interesting conversation with one of my spouse's alums last week, and he grew up in a school for veterans' children, and it was, it was integrated. It was and my spouse never noticed, to him, it was just, these were the people he lived with for, 15 years, or not 15 years, like 10, 12 years. And I was talking to one of his classmates, and he said, I never experienced racism while I was here at Scotland. He said, but it's in more recent years that I've started to notice it with my alums. And I said, well, how could that be? If it didn't for 30 years, didn't matter. And he didn't have a good answer, and neither did I. We couldn't figure it out.
You couldn't figure it out because nobody really focused on it unless they were directly affected by it. And there were so many people who were not directly affected by it. They went on about their lives, and the only thing they got to complain about was that, now that they've changed these things, I get left out of stuff. So it's personal now.
Yeah, and see, where my spouse went to school, it had been a military school, had recently changed, but they all hated it. So, and it was still a little bit under a military thing, but there was, everybody was treated the same no matter what. So it didn't matter what race, what gender, it didn't matter.
Right. And that's how I grew up, because I grew up in New York City. And nobody called me the N-word till I got to Northwestern. I go, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I was not offended by it. It didn't bother me. I felt sad for the poor girl because she was that ignorant. And I said, okay, I'm not here to teach. And I got a room of my own. But you have to sometimes take on the challenge, and it was that time. So we took on that challenge. We succeeded in getting a lot of provisions, but as we noticed 50 years later when we all met this May, some things haven't changed, but a lot has. We were thanked by a lot of black students who are there now who said, we wouldn't be here had you not done this. I said, yeah, that's probably true.
Well, you know what, Daphne, here's the thing. You earned your degree in interior design and architecture, but you had a lot of firsts. And one of the things, well, first I want to say that you were you not the first African-American cover girl for Glamour magazine?
Glamour magazine, Northwestern Homecoming Queen. I was the first for that too. And
that thing that you were the homecoming queen, they did not treat you respectfully when you were the homecoming queen, huh?
Not at all. No. They were not at all happy that I was the homecoming queen, and they made that quite clear. But as I say, my community knew that I was, and the Jet magazine, Ebony magazine, the Amsterdam News, all the news coverage that my community paid attention to was there for me and celebrated my success.
And
Northwestern didn't even put it in the yearbook. So.
Yeah, that just floored me when I read that. But you know what, Daphne? Eventually, that you were honored.
I was honored because they finally found out that I had done that. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't in the yearbook, there were a lot of folks who had no idea that I was the homecoming queen.
Wow.
And maybe 35, 40 years later, the Black Alumni Association invited me to give me a Hall of Fame award. They knew I went to Northwestern, but I was on television, so they were going to give me a award. I understand that kind of thing. But I went and accepted the award, and they asked me to talk about my time at Northwestern. And I did, and their mouths were hanging open. They said, "We had no idea." I said,
wow.
Didn't write it down.
And you were only, about 18, 19 when all that was going on?
Probably 19, yeah.
You know what, Daphne? I'm telling you, I would have, if that had happened to me, I would have gone home and eaten a half gallon of ice cream every single day. And you did not do that. You handled it very differently.
I just went on about my life knowing that ignorance is bliss, and let them be ignorant. I'm sorry, I have a life to live, and I'm going to live it the way I want to live it. So that's what I did. I was in love with a young man who was a football player at Northwestern, and we had a relationship that bloomed. In my junior year, we got married, and I tell you, it didn't bother me what they were doing. It only bothered me that they were affecting more people than just me. Mm-hmm. I could handle it because I just could handle it.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that attitude that your mother had was a lot. Yeah, I would think, because I could see that if she was going to say, just tell me how much you need for bail money, she must have been something special. And you write in the back of your cookbook, you write a lovely letter to her. And it brought tears to my eyes. You know what, Daphne, we have to take a break, so I want everybody to stay close, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm here with Daphne Maxwell Reid. And Daphne, we were talking about when you were at Northwestern, and around that time, you were also named one of the 14 most beautiful women in the world. Now, first of all,
what a statement can be. I was honored. I didn't see how they figured that out, but
well, you are beautiful, but to be one of the 14 most beautiful in the world.
I was thrilled, honey.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say otherwise. That was a delight for me.
But it was really something for the late
Cheryl
60s.
Teagues up there in the yeah.
All the icons of that day.
One day.
I'm sorry?
I was hot stuff in those days.
Yeah, you were hot stuff. And that would have been so. So did all of that lead to your acting career?
I guess everything contributed to anywhere that I am now. I mean, every road that I took, every opportunity I took advantage of led me to something else, led me to a growth in a certain area. And I have to say that I didn't plan any of it. It wasn't my desire to be a model. It wasn't my desire to be an actress. I didn't see any examples, or very few examples, of a black woman making a living being an actress, so this was not on my radar. But the opportunity arose, and they said, well, we want you to come and smile. I said, well, I can do that. And you're going to pay me to do that? Oh, of course, I'll come play.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So that's how I got to doing the modeling, and the cover happened. It was just another photo shoot. It took maybe about 10 minutes. And I flew into New York from school. And I had a wonderful woman who was kind of my mentor in New York. I was registered with Eileen Ford, who was the big muckety-muck modeling.
Oh, I remember that,
in the day. And she had listed me from a picture that she saw in 17 magazine, which was done because I had achieved a National Merit Scholarship, and they had a Real Girl issue. And I was featured in the Real Girl issue. And I had a picture taken, and it turned out to be a full page in the large format 17 magazine. And she said, come sign with me. I said, okay. But I was in school, so this was not a career I was aiming for. They would call and say, okay, we got some work for you. Okay, I fly to New York. Now, let me tell you, United Airlines between Chicago and New York, round-trip student fare was $25.
Oh my goodness! You can't even drive your car for that much anymore.
Right. So I was back and forth between Chicago and New York working, and I had a mentor named Amy Green, and she would call me and say, "Okay, I got some editorials for you to do," and I would fly to New York, and I'd have 2 days of shooting. Then I go back to class, and like nothing had happened except I got some money, and. She called me one day and she said, okay, come in. And I went in, and I had a clean face and clean hair. And she said, pull your hair over to the side, just put some mascara on and some lip gloss and this jacket, and just sit on the wall. Sit on the window over here. Okay. So I did. Sat there. He might have taken, 25 pictures. Took all of about 10 minutes. And then she said, okay, go back to school. And I'm walking along the street a couple of months later, and I see at the newsstand I'm on the cover of Glamour magazine.
Isn't that something?
I was floored.
I would have been too.
That was how my life was progressing, not by my earnest desires to do things. It was by my riding the wave of my karma, I guess you would say. It was what I was to be doing. So I went along, and I made sure that every opportunity I got, I learned something from it, either behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, what somebody else was doing, so that I'm prepared for any other opportunity that might come up.
Yeah, and you know what, Daphne, sometimes I think that some younger people don't really get that. It's like if it's not what they want, then it's like not as good as, instead of saying, wait a minute, I can learn something here. Do you know what I mean?
And you have to learn along the way, because you have to fail. You have to fail to know what not to do as well. And if you don't get up, that means the failure won. But if you get up, you get another chance.
I love that, Daphne. If you don't get up, then the failure won. I love that.
You can quote me.
Thank you. I think that's really neat. And so then you started your second. You were full time going to school, and you were full time modeling, and then you were 22, 23 when you started your second career in acting.
Yeah, I guess I was probably 22 or 23. I did commercials and catalog modeling. After I graduated from Northwestern, I was married, and I graduated pregnant. So I had my first child and was a happy, doting mother, and I was modeling at the time, doing catalog work for like Sears catalogs and Montgomery Wards and things like that. And then an opportunity came for me to audition for Robert Conrad, because he was doing a television show in Chicago. And we had our meeting and hit it off just fine. he must have had something to do with Northwestern. I can't remember whether he was an alum or not. But he called me Queenie. He found out I was the homecoming queen, and he called me Queenie.
That's funny.
So he said, I'm going to give you a part in this show because I want you to play a part in this show. I said, okay, that's fine. Well, I told my agent he's going to put me in this show. Well, the scripts came and the call sheet came out, and my agent called and says, you're not in this. I said, okay, that's fine. And I went on doing what I was doing. But the next day she called, she said, Daphne, I got another script, and you were handwritten into this.
Oh, my goodness.
And, oh, okay, so I'll go to work. Yep. And I worked with Robert Conrad for at least half of the shows that he did in Chicago.
Wow.
And then a couple of years later, when I moved out to L.A., he was out there doing another show called A Man Called Sloan. And I said hi, and he said, oh, I want you to be in this next episode. And he put me in the show.
Wow.
I got an agent in L.A. This is how my life has bloomed.
Wow.
I didn't have to beat on doors, and I didn't have to sit and wait. I was always busy doing something when an opportunity arose.
Wow. So how did you get the job on Fresh
Prince?
Yeah, it's just, you know what, Daphne, it's just not one, those words are not one to come out of my mouth today.
I hear, yeah, that's okay. I call it French Prince, too. But I had to audition for that. I had done many, many years of television before Fresh Prince. I had quite an established career that a lot of people didn't see the shows that I was on, but they were hits. I guest starred on WKRP in Cincinnati and Simon & Simon and Hardcastle and McCormick and Cagney and Lacey. And then my husband did a show called Frank's Place that he produced, and I was the star of that show. And
that's your spouse, Tim Reed, right?
That's Tim Reed. That's my husband. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we kind of took a break because we had worked so hard. We did another show called Snooped after Frank's Place. Huh. And then we did a talk show. We did 72 hours of a talk show that we were kind of auditioning for. And we were ready to just sit down for a minute. And they asked me to audition for some show. Oh, well, it's going to star a rapper. I'm going, no, thank you very much. I am not doing that. And we bought a farm in Virginia and moved. And I turned the TV on that fall and saw The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I said, what a cute show. Boy, I missed that one. So 3 years later, I'm still at the farm. I had done a couple of other shows in between, but just as a guest star. And they called and said, we're having a casting for the Aunt Vivian part on Fresh Prince. I said, I'll be there. And it took 2 weeks, and I was up against at least 200 other women. But James Avery, the guy who played my husband, and I hit it off immediately during the auditions. I absolutely adore that man.
Yeah, you had good chemistry.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
And it was in real life as well. He and his wife and Tim and I have traveled together. We just had a ball. He was just such a wonderful guy. And I finally got the part, and I was happier than they were, I'm sure. But they received me as if I had been there the whole time.
Nice. And you know, they never really explained how Aunt Viv looked different. I think
right.
the only thing was
you saw that episode?
Yeah, like you came back. In fact, I just watched it. It was someplace on YouTube or something, and didn't you, like, you came in with the baby and didn't Will Smith say, "Oh, Aunt Viv, you look different since you had the baby," or something like that? It was something like
Jeff.
that.
His friend Jazzy Jeff came in with a gift.
That's right.
And he says, oh, this is for little Dickie. I said, his name is Nicky. And he says, you know, you sure look different since you had that baby. And Will Smith turned and broke the fourth wall and looked dead into the camera and just shrugged. And that was all that was said about it. I thought it was brilliant.
And as I said, I just watched it recently, and it was very cleverly done.
Yep.
And but you faced a lot of, that was hard coming in after somebody was already established, and you faced a lot of backlash with that.
Nah, it
really?
wasn't hard. I just went to work. I didn't know the woman. I still have never met the woman.
Wow.
And they didn't say anything disparaging about it. It was like she had done her job and she's gone, and now we're moving on.
That's a wonderful, Daphne. I love that. It's like, well, it's whatever happened in the past, it has nothing to do with me, and I'm moving forward.
It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I got a job, and I'm happy.
Now, everyone on that show was so likable, Daphne, but and last year, and unfortunately James Avery passed away, but the rest of you had a reunion last year. What was that like?
It was wonderful. We've all been in touch in one way or another. I mean, they all went to Will and Jada's wedding, and I was out of town, so I couldn't go, and babies being born, and we went to Karen Parsons' wedding, and went to Alfonso's wedding, and half of us went to Tatiana's wedding. It's been always a group family. Everybody's welcome because we all really, really got along well and are proud of all the things that each of us does. And it's always been that way. And I tell you, Avery's wife and I are very good friends. We've traveled together since Avery died.
Oh, that's really nice.
I mean, friends are friends, and I don't take on friends lightly because it takes some effort to be a friend.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm the same way, Daphne. And people say you have to be a good friend to have a good friend, but that takes a lot of energy.
It does. It takes a commitment, whether you want to be a friend or not.
That's right.
But the reunion we had last year we were trying to pin Will down. He was so darn busy that it took about a year for us to get our calendars together.
Wow.
And they finally got a date. I said, I'll be there. So I flew out to L.A. for that. And we had a wonderful long afternoon together in a restaurant. And it was just so wonderful to see how everybody has bloomed. And we got to see Tatiana's new baby and Karen's project that she's doing. We just celebrate all of us.
That's neat.
We always do.
Daphne, we have to take another break, but when we come back, I want to talk about doors.
Okay.
I want to talk about all your doors books because they fascinate me. So everybody stay close, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Daphne Maxwell Reid. And Daphne, I have the first, I think it was the first of your 4 Doors books. And
it had a red cover on it?
It has a red door. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I have a thing about churches, so that's why I was so fascinated with your Doors books. And why doors?
I graduated from Northwestern with a degree in interior design and architecture. Mm-hmm. And I like details. And what draws me to doors, well, what initially drew me to doors was the craftsmanship and the color and the texture of doors. And then as I realized that I was only taking pictures of doors, I do some landscapes and some close-up Photoshops, but it's always details that I'm looking for. If my husband and I took a picture of the same building, he would have the entire building in it, and I would have a window or a door or a piece of hardware in it. That's what I saw. So I realized that I'm drawn to doors, and I had to figure out why, and have determined that they are the metaphor for my life. And they're the metaphor for life in general, because your life is full of opportunity, adventure, curiosity, and that's what doors represent. All of those different things.
And I'm thinking about, you have one that's like it's a blue one. It's on, and just so that my listeners know, I posted a link to that page of that where you have all of the doors and on today's radio wrap up at victoriouswoman.com. But there's one. Is it called an eggshell blue?
Yes, and it's the cover of a book.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a cover, but
Does it say France on it?
Yes, it's in France. That's right. Yes,
that's the book of France. I did 3 cities in France. And that's a door in Auvillard, France. It's on a building of a wonderful bed and breakfast that I stayed in Auvillard.
And tell my listeners what other countries that you have books of doors about.
The first book that you were referred to with the red door on the front is a book of Italy, Morocco, Germany, and I think a lot of different cities in Italy. And then the second book I did was on the doors on the western side of Cuba, the west and the south in Cuba, not just in Havana. I've been to Cuba several times, but I went on a photographic jaunt down to some of the old cities down the western side of Cuba, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I did that in 2015, so I called it Opening Closed Doors, because Obama had just opened up the country.
Oh, that's right.
To, relations again. So then the third book I did was Belgium. It was Antwerp and Bruges. It was just a little side trip that I had taken when I left Paris doing the France book. I took a train and said, I've never been to Belgium. So I stopped in 2 cities and walked around, and they had gorgeous doors. So I took pictures of doors, and I did a book of that. So I have 4 of the doors books altogether.
I know, and you know what? They're fascinating. As I looked, the book that I have, but also then you have I think you have about a dozen of those pictures on the website, and they're just so interesting. Like how you see them, just kind of fascinated me, because I was like, because I have that thing about churches. So I'm always taking pictures of churches, except that I would be like Tim. I would take the whole church.
Whole church.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way to see it. But I'm trying to encourage people also, as in life, look at the details. When you set out on a journey, you have an end point that you're trying to reach. Don't just look at that end point and not see all of the things on that road to the end point. You gotta look at the richness of life is in the detail, not in the big picture. So pay attention to it. Remember and look and be inquisitive and want to know more. It is such an exciting way to live.
And you know what, Daphne, you're right, because the things we remember, a lot of times we don't remember like if it's a wedding or something, we don't remember the whole thing. We remember a moment.
You remember a moment. You remember a detail. You look at the flowers on that cake. Don't care what the cake looks like, but the exquisiteness of each of those flowers. Somebody made that.
Yeah.
And that's how I see life. Somebody did that. And I'm just an admirer of craftsmanship.
Well, you can see that, and Victory Chicks and you guys, if you go to victoriouswoman.com and click on the link, it's in the section for today's show, and take a look at some of those, and you can buy those prints, and you do note cards. And the reason I'm pointing that out, Daphne, is because so many of my listeners have traveled so much, and then they have the pictures, but you really did a lot with your pictures
for friends.
Yeah, you really did good with the prints and the note cards. I like that idea.
Well, I always like to monetize the gifts that I've been given. And God gave me a lot of different gifts. He gave me a lot of talents and wonderful things. I have to manifest these gifts, and then I have to monetize. So that I can continue to honor the gifts that I have.
That's a really interesting way to think about that, because you know what, Daphne, I don't think a lot of women think about monetizing their work.
And a lot of people are not taught that art is something that is of value. It's just something to look at. But the value of art is in what it inspires people to do, and how it inspires them to feel. And arts build communities. When you see a new community getting started, it's usually around art galleries. It's around some place where people can gather and exchange ideas. And art is one way to do that.
And I agree. I think that's and how you have channeled that is really beautiful.
Thank you. I've had a wonderful journey with that, and we'll continue to do that. I got Sicily coming up this year.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's well, we don't consider that Italy. Those of us who have ancestors who came from Italy. I have an Italian background, but my cousins, who my uncle his family was from Sicily. Everybody's really clear that Sicily and Italy are two different countries.
That's fine. I don't have to do the politics over there. I'm just looking for their doors.
Yep, that's a good thing. So now listen, Daphne, the other thing is your cookbook, Grace, Soul, and Mother Wit. Why did you write it?
I wrote it because I've been collecting these recipes for 35 years. And my husband and I used to give a version of this cookbook out as Christmas presents every year, because they were recipes from the people we worked with and our family and what we liked to cook. And finally, I said, I have got to get this cookbook off of my computer. I have been dragging this around, not figuring out how I wanted to present it in order to publish it. Finally, people kept saying, why don't you write a memoir? And I'm going, I don't think I want to sit down and write a memoir, but I could start with a piece of a memoir in this book. So I crafted it around what food and family meant to me. And the title talks about the soul of our family was around the kitchen table. And grace was what you say when you sit down to a table, but it's also, my mother was just one of the most graceful women that I know. And mother wit is something you're either born with or you don't have. And having a lot of hints will give you a little more mother wit. So I put a lot of hints in it.
And you did. And you know what? Well, you even included remedies.
Yes.
I love those. I thought, I have to try some of them sometimes. But
they work.
I had really good intentions of making that sweet potato pie before today, but I had all the ingredients except for the yams. But that recipe, but I will be making that recipe but the other one that I really am interested in is Georgia's tamale pie.
Yes, that's huge. You got to have a party for that pie.
Well, you know what I was thinking? I was thinking I would make it once and then have 4 dinners.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I could freeze it, yeah.
George used to do that for our wrap parties. He was one of the, I guess he was called I don't remember what title he had, but he worked on the set with the actors. And for each of the wrap parties that we had on Sister Sister or any of the shows that we did and he was part of, he brought this huge tamale pie. So I just call it George's tamale pie. They give me the recipe. I'm putting it in.
I know. I can't wait to make it because it looks really good, and I thought it's a good one for a covered dish, but in my case, it would be a good one to have so that, when I'm too tired to cook at night, I can just take it out of the freezer.
Yeah, and it's either vegan or with meat.
Oh, yeah, I would put meat in. Yeah.
Yeah, good. You and me both.
Daphne, we have to go, but this was really a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming to Happy Hour with me.
Oh, it was a delight. Now my wine glass is empty, too.
So now we all have to fill up.
Yeah. It was a delight. You have a wonderful weekend. Happy Father's Day to anybody who is a father in your life.
Thank you. You have a wonderful weekend, too, Daphne. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, Victory Chicks and you guys, looks like this weekend is going to be a hot one. So I'm thinking a lot of you will be outside grilling. Way too hot to cook. And for all you fathers, I hope you're doing something fun to celebrate Father's Day. And I'm excited to be home this weekend. It's the first one since mid-May. And, after being away on business so much in the past month and sleeping in hotel rooms, I'm so glad to be sleeping in my own bed. And listen to this. After today's show, I have something special going on. I don't know if you remember me telling you about a month ago, but that I went to this networking event in Bryn Mawr, and I met this woman, Pat, who, as it turned out, taught at the same school I did at St. Bernard's in Drexel Hill. And she's good friends with somebody that I taught with. And, as we gabbed that day, we found out we had this common connections. And with this woman, Florence Spano, who I'd lost touch with over the years, and Pat got us back in touch. It's amazing what a small world. Well, anyway, today Florence is joining me after the show, so in a couple minutes I'll be giving her the 25-cent tour of WCHE, and then we're going out for a drink and some girlfriend time. So how fun is that? Don't you love when life gives you unexpected little treats like that? I do. I hope you all get a little unexpected treat this weekend. Oh my God, you guys. Did you all just wish for the same unexpected treat? You did. And that thought came right through the airwaves to me. And it had nothing to do with a barbecue on Sunday. You guys. Well, I hope you get your wish. Or at least a little something. Listen, everyone, thank you for joining me today for the Friday Happy Hour. And I'm glad when you do. I hope you'll come back next Friday. I was looking for a quote about girlfriends this morning, and I read a really clever one from Oprah who said, "Lots of people want to ride with you in the limo. What you want is someone who will take the bus with you when the limo breaks down." I hope you all have someone who will take that bus ride with you. I wish you guys, a happy Father's Day. Stay cool, everyone. Have a victorious weekend, and I'll talk to you next Friday at the Friday Happy Hour. Jen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.